Good morning, everybody. It's true. Your nightmare is reality. Luka Doncic has been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, and for Lakers fans, I mean, what a trade. Absolutely stunner of a deal. So, first and foremost, the trade is now official. What does it actually include? Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris head to the Los Angeles Lakers. Dallas Mavericks get Anthony Davis, a 29 first round pick, and Max Christie. The Utah Jazz are picking up Jalen Hushafino and a couple of second round picks, one from the Lakers, and yes, one from the Dallas Mavericks, who thought giving Luka Doncic up wasn't enough in the deal, that they had to include a second round pick in this deal in order to get this one across the finish line. Utah is also sending cash to both the Lakers and Mavericks, $55,000 each, to complete the deal. There's the official deal. What does this mean for both franchises going forward? Well, obviously, the Lakers now have a future. LeBron James only had about a year or two left. The team was seen as Anthony Davis is going forward, but he was going to be 33, 34 years old at that time and was going to be on the back nine of his career. Now, he may still play another 6, 7 years at a good level. He might have another 2, 3 years as far as a prime. But we're talking about Luka Doncic, who's just entering his prime. Some would argue you don't even reach your prime until you're 27. He's 25. So at minimum, you're talking about trading 10 years of a player and maybe 15 or more in exchange for Anthony Davis, who, while a more well-rounded player, is nowhere near the offensive player that Luka is. AD has certainly seen his offense take a little bit of a dip as far as efficiency. His three-point numbers are down to 26% shooting. He is very much a more well-rounded defender, rebounder, but the Mavericks already have that in spades at the center position with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Spacing is now going to be a big issue for the Mavericks. Who's their point guard going to be? Because while Kyrie Irving is a great shot creator on his own and is a good secondary ball handler, one of the greatest shot makers in NBA history, do you want your offense running through Kyrie Irving and having that much responsibility on his shoulders? Your second best playmaker on the team is now Spencer Dinwiddie, and while Luka was out and injured, that was a good option to have. But to me, Spencer Dinwiddie as your second best shot creator on the team, second best playmaker, is a big question mark going forward. I imagine the Mavericks are going to look at the possibility of adding a point guard here before the trade deadline. They may even revisit the idea of trading Daniel Gafford as well, because right now the spacing on the floor does not make sense. Klay Thompson's role on this team no longer makes sense as well, because you're going to have him create his own shot this year, and we saw what he's done this year in that short amount of time. He can't really do it at the level that he did with Golden State. The best parts of Klay Thompson were when Luka Doncic was on the floor and he could spot up in the corner and knock down those shots. In that regard, he is still a top 10 player in the entire league as far as catch and shoot threes. That now is gone on this team. Now, unless Kyrie Irving is going to be doing that exact same thing, which I imagine they're going to try, there's no way it's going to be as good as with Luka. Their offense will certainly take a dip. Spacing will take a dip. Their defensive interior will be better. I'm not sure how much better they'll be on the perimeter with Luka. I'm sure it'll be a little bit better because Luka was seen as a little bit of a liability out on the outside. In the post, he was at least able to hold his own from time to time. But AD obviously a better post defender, better rim protector. But you already had that, like I said, with Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford. Now let's get to the asset management question here. What does this mean for Dallas going forward? Well, we compared it last night to the trade of Kevin Durant, who was seen as an aging player at the time when the Nets traded him in exchange for 4 first-round picks, a possible Defensive Player of the Year candidate, Mikal Bridges. Looking at Anthony Davis, the primary asset he brings, aside from the scoring and rebounding, is he's a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Is he as good as he once was? Probably not, but I would say he is the number one reason LA even had a defense this year. Then you look at the other pieces that were involved. Cam Johnson, the young piece going forward, I wouldn't say that Max Christie is on his level. And then the 4 first-round picks. Not to mention the trade that sent Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks for 5 first-rounders and an expiring deal. Just incredible asset management by the Nets to be able to get what they got in that return. Absolutely great. Terrible asset management for the Dallas Mavericks. Even if you believe everything that you're saying as far as conditioning issues, that you're worried about the max contract and all those kinds of things. I get it. You had worries about him in the future. But what about the asset management of this? Luka Doncic was seen at worst as a top 4 player in the game right now. Anthony Davis is not one of the top 3 ahead of Luka Doncic in that conversation. Is AD still a great player? Absolutely. Is he a top 10 player? At times. Is he a top 20 player? Certainly. But are you saying you're trading the number 4 player at worst in the NBA right now, who still has his best years ahead of him, prime years ahead, and yes, you still have to get the Supermax done, but no player has turned down the Supermax once offered, and there's no guarantee that he would have been the first to do so. And I'm sure teams would have been lining up to sign him, as Nico Harrison said in the article that was posted to Dallas Morning News this morning. But you're still talking about Luka Doncic entering his prime, turning down $345 million? That wasn't going to happen. And you didn't even open it up to other teams. Now that part, I don't necessarily mind. You identified a team that you thought you wanted to get a great trade from. Sure, by all means, go ahead and try to get the best trade you can. In that case, where's Reeves? Where's Connect? Where's the other first-round pick in 2031? Where's the pick swaps? And where's all the second-round picks? You set the terms for the trade if you're Dallas, not the Los Angeles Lakers. That's my biggest issue for this one. But appreciate you guys joining us early this morning. We're going to have our baseball live here in just a little bit, but wanted to kind of recap the trade that we saw last night that sent Luka in the most shocking trade in professional sports history to the Los Angeles Lakers. Great on the Lakers. Absolutely great job there. Apparently this deal had been at least discussed between the two GMs for the better part of the last month, and it kind of gained legs over the last couple of days. Nico Harrison, again, basically saying that he worried about the conditioning there, worried about the Supermax with Luka, wasn't sure this team was going to be a championship team with his defensive limitations. I get all of that. But from a pure asset management standpoint, you identified as Anthony Davis as the one player you want back. Okay, great. Then what's the rest of the trade going to look like? Because AD does not equal LeBron James. And that's basically what they're saying here. The one first-round pick that they're going to get in 29 is going to be outside of the lottery. Max Christie, while a decent 3-and-D player and is developing, will certainly see his role diminish on the Mavericks, at least for what he's done so far this year with the Lakers. He's going to have that role diminished with the Mavericks, and there's no guarantee he ever gets to that potential of even being a starting player. And you're saying 3 years of AD that you're in a win-now mode? I would say Luka right now is a better player. Certainly offensively, more defensively for AD. You're hoping that the defense really plays, and I cannot stand the comment that was told to, I believe it was Mark Stein or Brad Townsend from Nico Harrison or some team executive that said, we envision this being just like Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I'm sorry, Evan Mobley is 23 years old. They have the bright future there. Neither one of those players is going to be on the contract of the level of Anthony Davis. Plus, Davis is 31 and is seen as the better player out of Gafford, Lively, and Anthony Davis. While he does give you some offense down in the post, he does improve that one weakness on the team. Again, the asset management here. And one other thing. Since when has Cleveland won a title with Mobley and with Allen? Sure, you're getting Anthony Davis to compete with Wembanyama in the same division. Now you have Lively and Gafford. You can throw 3 great defenders at him and then mix things up if you wanted to by throwing P.J. Washington or Najee Marshall at him if you wanted a smaller defender. Change up the look on him. Sure, absolutely. Wemby is going to be one of the greatest players we've ever seen. No argument there. But again, the offense is going to be much worse. You need a point guard after trading away your best offensive player. And because Anthony Davis has injury risk just like Luka does, there's no guarantee that he's even going to be on the floor either way. So I have questions as far as that's concerned. Now, one last thing I wanted to get into here is what could they have gotten from other teams? Looking at the San Antonio Spurs, you imagine if the Mavericks had picked up the phone and called San Antonio, hey, would you be interested in having Luka and Wembanyama for the next 15 years? San Antonio says, yes, take whatever you want, please, right now. We sign up immediately. They trade you, 7 first-round picks? What's left of the Atlanta picks, who is not a great team right now either way. You're getting all of the future picks from San Antonio. Guaranteed they're going to be weak picks at the back end. But you're talking about several picks here. You're also getting a young, talented point guard as well in Castle. You'd probably be able to get Vassell out of that deal, a good defensive wing. Picture him as kind of the Mikal Bridges in that deal. You'd been able to get Keldon Johnson if you wanted to as well. Whatever piece you want, the Spurs would have given you. That's just one team. Let's take another one, the Utah Jazz. Now, sure, there's not an Anthony Davis defender on that team. Lauri Markkanen's their best tradable asset if you would like to get a big-time player in that deal. If you don't, then Rudy Gobert, just for comparison, got 5 first-round picks from the Minnesota Timberwolves. You're saying Luka isn't worth that? Now, granted, they didn't get Anthony Davis in the deal, but they certainly did very well as far as the stockpiling of picks. You could have gotten the hauls that they got for Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and maybe more first-round picks out of it and swaps. Utah would have done that in a heartbeat to pair Markkanen with Doncic. Now, say you got Markkanen back out of the deal, maybe you only get 3-4 first-round picks out of it. That's another team that would have made a better offer than what the Lakers ultimately gave. But say, maybe you just wanted Anthony Davis in this deal, which is certainly what it seems like from the outside looking in, is what Nico Harrison wanted in this trade. That he wanted and identified Anthony Davis as a difference-making player that he wanted to address a need on this team. And yes, I'll agree that the offense that he brings at a position of need was great for the Mavericks. I thought they needed a little bit more size. I didn't think they would go this big as far as a trade asset. I think the biggest trade that was even contemplated up to this point was Zion Williamson possibly being traded for Daniel Gafford and a couple other players. Obviously, that's not happening at this point. There's no fit on the team for him at this point. But boy, oh boy, this is a massive trade, one of the most stunning trades in NBA history. Now, I mentioned two teams here that could make other offers for Luka Doncic if the Mavericks had just opened it up a little bit here. The Utah Jazz, with all those draft picks that they got from Gobert and Mitchell, the San Antonio Spurs would have loved to have paired him with Wemby, and you got to imagine the defensive limitations of Luka would have been wiped out or at least covered by Victor, who is a better defensive player, by the way, than Anthony Davis. Then you go to the Brooklyn Nets. Hard to imagine them not trading everything that they got for Kevin Durant and Mikal Bridges in return for Luka Doncic. Even if they don't have to include Cam Johnson, say they just include a couple of expiring contracts, that trade I would have preferred over this. And yes, I'm understanding that Anthony Davis is a better player right now on the roster and keeps them at least in contention for a playoff spot this year. I'm not sure this is an NBA Finals team with Anthony Davis in the center. Sure, they're better defensively, and Nico Harrison says defense wins championships. And yes, there is something to that. But to the same degree, he's not the same three-point shooter as Luka, and Luka's not a great three-point shooter, but he certainly is 10 percentage points better than AD. The spacing on the floor with having two guys that can't shoot threes on the same floor, whether it be Gafford and Davis, Lively and Davis, the spacing is going to be all clogged up. You have nobody who's going to get to the free throw line now aside from Spencer Dinwiddie. Luka was the one guy who would drive and kick and all those kinds of things. Klay Thompson's past his prime when it comes to a primary ball handler. Kyrie Irving is going to have more foisted on his shoulders, and he's a great leader on this team since he's come to Dallas. But they need another point guard here. They have Jaden Hardy. They're going to rely on him and hope his development continues. That's got to be your big bright spot there. They did just get the return of Dante Exum one game this year so far, and I guess Dallas said, hey, we got the depth now. We guess we can trade Luka. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. All right, let's go ahead and check out some of the comments here. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. Verlis, Wooey, Lucas, appreciate you guys joining us. Yeah, I would definitely say they got fleeced 31-year-old Robin for a 25-year-old Batman, and they only get one pick out of it? Yikes. I've never felt so sad this morning. Yeah, I was kind of the same thing. I just, it took me about 2 hours to kind of relax last night to finally be able to go to sleep, wake up, and then I immediately go to, X and just see if there's anything there that says, there was more details in the trade. Maybe they got an extra first-round pick out of it, but the trade just became official right before we came live on the air. But just incredible trade overall. I swear if they don't trade for a De'Aaron Fox, well, they don't have the assets to trade it because they didn't get enough assets back for Luka Doncic to be able to get De'Aaron Fox, so that's not happening. I was just looking at what they could even do as far as a trade assets. The contracts that they would have to move out, you're talking about Daniel Gafford, Klay Thompson to even get close to De'Aaron Fox as far as a salary in trade, and then whatever picks the Sacramento Kings would want, that ain't happening. Now, as far as a smaller level point guard, maybe they could do something like that. Say De'Aaron Fox goes to the San Antonio Spurs. Maybe you could get CP3, which, yay, defensively limited player once again coming back onto the roster. Maybe you get Trey Jones there. But I don't think Castle would be coming to Dallas in that type of a deal. I don't think that they would even be able to enter that type of a deal because I'm not sure what Dallas would be able to offer those teams in that type of a three-team swap. But I don't understand the trade from top to bottom, asset management. It doesn't make sense. I'm not in the camp of you don't ever trade Luka, but the return has to be a good package. Hell, they didn't even shop him around. This trade smells fishy. I wasn't in the camp that they would never trade Luka either. I thought it was very unlikely. I thought he was a very good, if not greatest offensive player I've seen in a very long time in the NBA. Top four player in the NBA, even without the defense and the conditioning issues that he has. And he's still a top four player in the NBA. As far as trade value, I'm not sure who you would put ahead of him besides Wemby. I hear a couple of people putting Giannis or Jokic anyway above him. But for me, he's 25 years old. Giannis is older. Jokic is older. Wemby is the younger piece, which is why I have more value there. But the days of having Zion and more valuable than Luka Doncic passed several years ago now. I mean, just the asset management of this. I tell you guys all the time, I love smart people. I love smart trades. I love smart decisions. And this is one of the most colossally short-sighted things I've ever seen in sports. Outside of Shohei Ohtani and how that thing ended there with the Angels, I'm not sure where I would put this in the rankings of most short-sighted decisions in sports history. This has got to be in the top 5 worst trades ever. Understanding that they are getting a very good player back in this deal. The asset management alone puts it in that category. We're talking about Herschel Walker. We're talking about Ricky Williams as far as some of the worst trades we've ever seen. I'm sure there's several others that I could, mention here as far as some of the worst trades ever. I saw in the chat anyway yesterday that you guys, I was kind of seeing what a comp would be in the NFL. Adam Schefter tried to do the same, and he tried to say that this would be on the level of Lamar Jackson plus being traded for Joe Burrow plus. I'm sorry. AD, while he's a good player, a very good player, a top 20 player in the NBA, is not on the level of Luka, and he's still in his prime. On the back half of his prime, but he's still in his prime. And Luka's already better and hasn't even touched his prime years yet. That's kind of my biggest issue of it. It doesn't make a lot of sense as far as that's concerned. Again, asset management, big F grade for the Dallas Mavericks on this trade. They are my favorite team, and you can understand why I'm being so hard on this one, because as an outside observer of the team, outside being, hey, I don't have rose-colored glasses on when it comes to the expectations of the Mavericks. I thought they were a great team. I still thought they were a flawed team. I thought they needed one more wing player on this team as far as a team that could compete for an NBA Finals. I thought last year the matchups really worked in their favor, and they made it to the NBA Finals, but the NBA is primarily matchup-driven. Now with the matchups that they have, sure, they're going to be a problem for Oklahoma City, but they already were a problem for Oklahoma City. They're going to get better on the wing as far as defense. Not playing Luka Doncic out there, I imagine, is going to help them out. But come on, man. We're talking about the greatest engine in your offense, and now you have poor floor spacing, and you're going back to Kyrie saying, hey, take over the primary ball handling responsibilities when you haven't done that since your days in Brooklyn. We'll see what happens. But for me, this is one of the worst trades I've seen in the history of sports. One of the most, I would say, the most shocking trade ever. Unquestionably, it just doesn't make sense. And again, why don't you open this up to at least get other teams involved? I don't necessarily believe in shopping him, but at least go to the teams that have assets. Go to San Antonio and say, hey, what would it take for you guys to be interested in Luka Doncic? Oh, everything? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get Castle, Vassell, Johnson, all your first-round picks and your swaps, and we want our swap back if I'm Dallas. That would be a legitimate package that would at least be on the table. Now, maybe you finagle over the final pick or 2, but you're still talking about at least 4 first-round picks, including their top young player outside of Victor Wembanyama. You go to the Brooklyn Nets, whatever you want as far as draft capital. Everything they got for KD and Mikal Bridges combined in that deal for Luka Doncic, they say yes immediately. I don't even think they, take a second and consult ownership. They say yes before you can rethink the deal. The Utah Jazz, same boat there. And that's just 3 teams. I'm sure there are other teams that I'm missing here. For instance, the Orlando Magic or Oklahoma City Thunder have great assets. They could have been in this type of trade discussion here. But they identified AD as the one player that they wanted, and ultimately the Lakers held him over a barrel and said, hey, you guys are approaching us about the deal, so I guess we have the more valuable asset here, and so we'll only give you up a more valuable asset than we think, and so we'll only give up 1 pick and a decent rotational player. That's what they ultimately got for him. And trading a top 4 player in the NBA, trading a player entering his prime, seen as a future MVP at the age of 25 years old, has never happened in professional sports. Sure, we've seen free agents leave. Some of the most shocking moves in NBA over the last 20 years, LeBron in the decision going to Miami. KD getting deciding to go to the Golden State Warriors. Some of the greatest moves we've seen. This was an organization that had a happy superstar on it, no qualms as far as any issues on the team, personal relationships, etc. And they independently decided, I say they, Nico Harrison independently decided that this was not the direction of the franchise. Now, some of the quotes that you see in the article for the Dallas Morning News are going to really rub Mavericks fans the wrong way, and understandably so. If you guys want to check out that article, I highly recommend it. But just look at the screen right here. There's your picture, kind of the edit there. Luka. Tough seeing him in a Lakers edit, honestly, as a Maverick fan. But for the Lakers, they definitely saved their future right there. So hats off to the Lakers for what they are able to get done here. I'm going to skip ahead to a few of these comments here, so I apologize if I missed some of yours. Let's see here. I have no idea whether to jump ship or jump off the ship. Good question. Good mention there. B. Skrills, welcome in. Yeah, this move came out of nowhere. Still can't believe Luka is a Laker. Right there with you. Henny, excuse me. Hey man, I diehard Mavs fan here, and this is one of the worst trades in North American sports history. Completely disgusting. Couldn't agree with you more. Michael, show some emotion, shout or something at least. I mean, I'm all shouted out from last night. Let's just say I was waiting for another shoe to drop. Like, hey, we didn't have all the details in the trade. There's actually some other assets coming from Utah. That's why they were even included in this deal. I don't understand from, just including Jalen in this deal. Why didn't they try to offload another bad contract on the Lakers for this Luka deal? I mean, come on, man. Welcome in, Master Vin, man. Appreciate you joining us. I literally don't know how they didn't get Connect and the other first-round pick. My point's exactly here. Hey, throw in Dwight Powell, bring in Dalton Connect in that trade, and it's still lopsided in the Lakers' favor. Trade LeBron next. LeBron ruined the Lakers? No. LeBron saved the Lakers after the way they ended things with Kobe Bryant. He bailed them out of that situation and won them a title when they had no business getting to that level that quickly. And LeBron just wanting to go to LA is what saved the Lakers. Now, of course, the last couple of years have seemed kind of dwindling for the Lakers as far as they don't have necessarily the best team on the floor compared to the rest of the league. And they were seen as a team that had an expiration date on it. Now with Luka, that expiration date is gone. Luka is still an ascending player, much more ascending than Anthony Davis, and now they have a bright future going forward. So LeBron did not ruin the Lakers. He won them a championship when they had no business being in the championship conversation. After the way things ended with Kobe Bryant, that team was seen with zero assets as a team that was going to be going through a rebuild phase. That they were going to have money. They could lure a free agent. But nobody of the level of LeBron, and sure enough, LeBron goes there because he wanted to go there, and ultimately got them another title. But I don't get all the LeBron hate from Lakers fans. He absolutely carried that team along with Anthony Davis to a title when they had no business doing so. Alrighty. After looking into this really good, Lakers got the win out of this trade. Absolutely, Alberto. Good morning, Hank. Appreciate you. Luka, next move is to get LeBron James diet ASAP. I'm sure LeBron's going to help him out as far as getting in conditioning, etc. And if you ever needed motivation for a trade or motivation to get in shape, Nico Harrison, of the GM of the Mavericks, absolutely just gave it to Luka. I wouldn't be surprised if Luka comes back in absolutely fantastic shape, six-pack, the whole nine, next year. So we'll see. Verlis, Connect and another first-round pick would have made this trade more understandable. Yes, but it still would have been lopsided to me. Then you'd still have to include a couple of swaps in there. Maybe you include Rui Hachimura going somewhere else. Maybe you include, I don't know, whatever other assets to get another draft pick from another team. I'm just saying whatever the Lakers had as far as trade assets was not going to be enough for Luka Doncic, and they get him without even having to give up everything. That's the surprising part there. Lucas, you call OKC. They immediately offer Chet and 5 firsts, some which are really valuable. Yes, they are. King, welcome in. That's why. Let me scroll up here. Got quite a few comments here in our chat. That's why most players not playing because they want to be traded. Joel to the Lakers. No, his is more injury related. I don't think anybody would really want his contract at the moment either. because I'm wondering if how his career started is how his career will ultimately end. Not saying that Embiid is not a great player, just the asset management of it. Embiid, to me, even Embiid would have been a better trade here for the Lakers, at least a more reasonable trade. I don't see him on the level of Luka Doncic either as far as value because of the injury risks there associated with him. But even with those, I think the trade here, AD and a first and Max Christie for Joel Embiid would have been a more reasonable trade to expect. But for that trade package to be what gets Luka Doncic, that's the surprise to me. LeBron to the Warriors, don't be surprised. I would be because I think this trade right now with LeBron, I think they're going to make a trade here, a small trade, to add a center. Look for Jonas Valanciunas to be traded to the Lakers in exchange for maybe Maxi Kleber and a second-round pick. Don't be surprised about that one. Daniel Gafford, Clay, Marshall, since we got Christie, might be available. We have 3 firsts for Fox. I don't know. Clay, I don't think he's necessarily a positive trade asset. I think the only way you trade him is to a contending team like the Lakers because they already reached out to him during free agency. I say contending now because they have Luka Doncic. They're not going to win the title this year because they don't have the size necessary. They'll add some, but I don't think they're winning the title this year. But as far as what could be next for the Mavericks, I think Daniel Gafford is in play. I don't think the spacing on the floor really works. And yes, you do need to have a good secondary big. And so that's why I think Derek Lively. But I'd rather save my money as far as a bigger 4. I think you already have that option on your roster in P.J. Washington to kind of play those backup 4 minutes. AD plays the backup 5 minutes. Maybe bring in another low-cost big like a Mo Bamba or somebody of that ilk to kind of take those minutes. But I would trade Daniel Gafford for what you can get for him right now. Understandably, AD has his injury. Understandably, Lively's going to be out for a couple of months. But we'll see. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy here. Hank, call me crazy, but I like my sports guys, podcast, whatever. I need my sports podcasters to have passion and intelligence. Mike does. Thank you, Hank. Appreciate you, my friend. Any Lucas, who cares? Our teams don't improve at all. They do, as far as the Mavericks, they've done a steadily climb as far as improvement. I mean, a lot of the national media out there panned the trade for Washington, panned the trade for Irving, panned the trade for Daniel Gafford. Win, 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 all in Nico Harrison's book. All of that good work, all that goodwill incurred by the fans, by those moves. The trust that we had in Nico. In Nico we trust is what Mav fans said. That is now completely shattered and gone. The trust is gone. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing him being, let's just say that the Fire Nico chants are going to be pretty strong at games going forward the rest of the year. Games are still going to be sold out in Dallas. Everybody's going to want to see how this team looks with AD. I can already tell you, they're going to be better interior defense. Their wing defense will be marginally improved. Their floor spacing is going to be much worse. Their offense is going to take a dip. They're going to need another ball handler here to kind of wrap up the year as far as I'm concerned. But this move, I guess for Nico is a win-now move for them because it has to be for a 31, 32-year-old AD, 31, almost 32-year-old Kyrie Irving. It just doesn't make sense from an asset standpoint. And we'll see what the Mavericks do next. One last thing I wanted to touch on here is what it means for the other teams in the Dallas Metroplex. Cowboys, of course, have their Jerry Jones fiasco. What are they going to do with Micah Parsons? The head coach fiasco with Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer. They're at an all-time low since I've been following the Dallas Cowboys as far as fan interest in the team. Now that the Cowboys, they're going to be the most talked about team in Dallas no matter what happens. But Dallas was seen as one of the most stable franchises in the Metroplex. That's gone. That goodwill that they built up with Dirk Nowitzki, the goodwill that they had built up so far with Luka, gone just like that. KD kind of said it best along with Devin Booker. Surprising that we're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns here, but their comments are pretty much spot on here. You got to have your bags packed if you're a player. The loyalty that we expect from players is nowhere near the level of loyalty that we should be expecting from teams. That teams, cry foul every time a player wants to request a trade. But this is why players should not be paying as much for when they request a trade because, again, we don't hold the teams to the same account. And right now, this is a tough one, man. One other thing I wanted to mention, we saw a Dallas Metroplex team make a big trade yesterday. The Dallas Stars made one of the biggest trades in the entire NHL season yesterday, and it got completely overshadowed by this, and rightly so. I love the trade for the Stars anyway. They get a center there in Mikael Granlund and defenseman and Cody Ceci for a first and a fourth-round pick that could become a third if they make it to the Stanley Cup final. And yes, it's final, not finals, by the way. But as far as the trade, gives them insurance for the injuries that they have on that roster, with Tyler Seguin expected to miss the rest of the regular season, and with Miro Heiskanen expected to miss several weeks throughout the regular season and maybe back in time for the postseason. Good trade overall. Both are UFAs at the end of the year. Completely dwarfed now by the trade here for Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers. They have an opportunity to really up their profile here with Dallas. With the Cowboys kind of floundering in their PR debacle. Same thing now with the Dallas Mavericks. They're going to take a big hit as far as their popularity in Dallas. The Texas Rangers are now seen as probably the most stable franchise in Dallas. They just won a World Series a couple of years ago. Chris Young, of course, president of baseball ops, really reloaded this team really well this year. And I'm excited to see what this team is going to look like in 2025. Now, for those of you who follow us religiously here at The Upside, you know how we do our lives every single evening. We'll be live here in just a moment to discuss some trades that could be going down over the next week as we prepare for spring training. We'll get into that in just a moment. I apologize if I didn't get to your comment. I know there's a few of you guys in here for the first time. I want to thank you guys for your support, hitting that like and subscribe. But without this, we couldn't have this trade go by. You know, my favorite team making the biggest trade in basketball history in my mind, one of the most shocking trades in basketball history. I'm sure there are other trades that are on this level. To me, the most shocking trades or most consequential trades, we're talking Babe Ruth in baseball, Herschel Walker, the haul that they got, kind of built a championship team at that time because of the trade of Herschel Walker from the Cowboys to the Vikings and everything that they got in return there. NBA trades, we're talking, I don't even know what would be rivaling this in the NBA. It's just crazy, man. Just absolutely crazy. Pennies on the dollar. Pennies to me is a little strong. I do like AD as a player. This trade is not good as far as spacing and fit for both teams. I wouldn't say pennies on the dollar. Maybe 40 cents on the dollar, as Bill Simmons put in his podcast, in his emergency live that he did last night. I was able to watch a few of those as I was trying to kind of breathe through it with the rest of Mavericks Nation. But boy, oh boy, Aaron Donald retired for Patrick Mahomes, more accurate, possibly. Made it to the finals for Luka and then traded for pennies. Fairly accurate there. Fior's got punching the door back and forth. Don't hurt your hand, my friend. Let's go over to MLB here in just a few minutes. We'll do our live here in just a moment here. Dirk is my favorite fit for a reason. He's all class, integrity, and competition. Thus, it's not Dirk's NBA. It is. I absolutely agree there. Might jump to the Orlando Magic because they got some Germans. Yeah. The Cody Ceci Senators and Leafs legend. Yes, they did. Welcome in, Jordan. Appreciate you joining us once again. Lakers doing all this just to stop Scotty Barnes. That's funny. That's a good one, Jordan. Need a recovery beer. Yeah. Woo-wee. LeBron staying unless there's a team that wants to make a dumb trade and LeBron waives his no trade clause. Yeah, he's staying with the Lakers. Are you kidding me? He wants to play with Luka. Not that I think that matters to the front office. I think if they could trade LeBron right now for future assets and still remain competitive, they might do it after this trade. But, man, he would have to waive his no trade to get that done. Maybe he would move to the Golden State Warriors. Maybe that'd be the one team he would waive his no trade for. I don't buy it, but I think he's going to stay with the Lakers. Oh, by the way, guys, we made the finals on Luka's back, and we just traded him for a 32-year-old who's injury-prone because he's better at defense. It's almost comical at this point. Yes, it is. Oh, boy. Haven't been here. Exams are a killer. Yes, they are. I just had to do one for a career change to get a license for a new career, so got some stuff going on the back end as well, so I feel for you there, Jordan. Anthony Davis is the last player in the NBA who's going to... Anthony Davis is the last NBA player who was kind of young, year 7 too, but he really wanted out. Yes, that's kind of the most comparable trade I could think of as well. The Anthony Davis trade from the Pelicans was around 25, 6 years old. When that trade happened with the Lakers, they got Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball, who was seen as a good young point guard of the future at the time to the Pelicans, along with, I believe, 3 first-rounders and a swap in that deal. This trade, while they're getting Anthony Davis out of this trade, to me does not even rival that trade. And like I said, I mean, the Kevin Durant trade that we saw a couple of years ago to the Phoenix Suns, you didn't even get that asset return there for a player who's just about to enter his prime, not even there yet, versus a player who's going out of his prime in Kevin Durant there, who had had a couple of tough playoff appearances and looked like a worse NBA player than Jaylen Brown when he was with the Brooklyn Nets. Jaylen Brown was stifling Kevin Durant. You're saying now that Kevin Durant has more value. You're saying now that Jaylen Brown has more value. You're saying now that Jason Tatum has more value. You're saying now that Mikal Bridges has more value. It just doesn't make sense. Alrighty. As far as the future, what it holds for the Mavericks, you got to think they're going to add a point guard of some kind, some type of primary ball handler to take some of that responsibility off of Kyrie's shoulders. I would trust Dinwiddie as more of a third primary ball handler as opposed to the second one here for the Mavericks. I'm curious to see if they get dip their toe into the De'Aaron Fox sweepstakes and just see what they can get out of it. I don't think they would get De'Aaron Fox out of it, but maybe Nico Harrison knows something that we don't. Maybe he takes another negative asset on another team that we all go, oh, this trade is terrible, and it works out. I mean, it worked well with Kyrie. I mean, all the bad trades, at least that we thought were bad in the beginning, at least the national media did, with Daniel Gafford, P.J. Washington, and Kyrie, all worked. Now this is a big risk here with Luka Doncic, and again, absolutely terrible asset management. That's without question, no matter what they do. This is still terrible asset management, but we'll see. It's going to be an interesting couple of months here for the Mavericks, what the rest of this year looks like, what the next 3 years looks like with AD, and then after that, how many years are we going to watch Luka Doncic torch the Mavericks when he comes to Dallas in a Lakers uniform? That's the part that's going to be really hard to watch if you're a Mavericks fan. I do not look forward to those dates. Wish the best for Luka. Wish the best for him out there in LA. Just surprising trade, and most surprising trade in NBA history. SGA wasn't special. PG and SGA. PG got traded for more than what Luka just got traded for. He got SGA, but SGA wasn't seen as this type of a player. But it was seen as one of the most valuable trade assets at the time because of his, what he could become. People thought maybe he could be a very good, two-way player, say 15 to 17 a night with some of the great defensive plays on the other end of the floor. The length and versatility that he had. Now we get SGA getting 50-point games now. Nobody really saw that happening for him, but all the assets that they got in that one, Oklahoma City did. Just great deal for Oklahoma City at the time. I don't know, does Lonzo Ball work? That's one name that I kind of thought about. Maybe trade a Klay Thompson for a Lonzo Ball, maybe reroute Klay somewhere else. Maybe send Rui Hachimura to the Bulls and send Klay to the Lakers so he can play with Luka and LeBron, the two players he wanted to play with this offseason. Luka, someone said Brandon Ingram, but they ain't gonna do that. Surely they can't have three players who can't shoot. Brandon Ingram can shoot. The thing is, he's a little bit of a ball hog and thinks he is a better offensive player than he is. He does play a little bit of defense, but not a lot, and I don't think that he would be an improvement too much over what P.J. Washington brings. If I'm looking for an asset out of New Orleans, I would have been looking for DeJounte Murray before he had his injury. I thought that would have been a piece they could have pursued, and then Herb Jones as well. SJ was what Castle is right now. I don't think so. Castle is more of an offensively tilted player. SGA was always seen as a lockdown defending type of a player. Castle is a good player, don't get me wrong, but if you could have gotten Castle out of the deal and all those picks from the Spurs, which I think would have easily been available, I thought that would have been a better trade than what they get here. Anyway, appreciate you guys joining us. We're going to do our baseball live here in just a moment. Be sure to join us for that one. We'll go into some positivity on the MLB side, get into some of the news and notes that we didn't get into last night. A very short live that we did last night. I apologize to my baseball viewers anyway. We'll get into that one as well. And then we'll get into a lot of the trade discussions that I wanted to touch on with the Mets, Cubs, Braves, Padres, Mariners, Rangers, Cardinals, Yankees as well, Blue Jays. There's a lot to get into in that one. But we'll be live with that one here in just a moment. But thank you guys. We'll see you guys in just a moment. Y'all have a good one.